It's time to build a dungeon. First things first, we didn't turn our ground plane back on. Let's turn that on so we have collision and the ball doesn't roll through. We'll go to our console and click play. Make sure, there we go. So our health doesn't update, and we do get it logging the information, but it's not showing to our display. Real quick to fix that, that would be our display health method is running at the start of the game, but it doesn't update the display when we actually get when change health is called. So we could copy our display health method, and we can run that in our change health. Save that. There we go. So now when we bump into it, we do get it updates. Awesome. We're going to download a free asset. So the first thing that we can do is we want to go to the Unity Asset Store. So you can type in assetstore.unity.com. And you will have to log in or create an account if you haven't done so. And then in the search bar, we're going to type in Stylized Dungeon. We want this for 3D. And if we scroll down here under pricing, we want free assets. And then you'll see this first one here, Stylized Hand-Painted Dungeon. We'll just click right in the middle of the thumbnail. And here we have the dungeon. We can go ahead and click Open in Unity. It'll give you a pop-up here, and it'll automatically pulling up the package manager, and you will find in the list, if you have multiple packages, Stylized Hand-Painted Dungeon. You'll need to click Download, and it'll take a few minutes to download. Once it's done downloading, we will click Import. And it's going to create all of these folders for us. I can minimize them just to show you. We have one main folder, and then we have 5 underneath that. We'll click Import, and it'll go through the process of importing the package, in which then we'll be able to take a look. We can now close this box out and go to our project. And under our assets, you'll see there is a Stylized Hand-Painted Dungeon. We can double click on that. And you'll see we get some information here. We're going to go into the demo scene, and the assets preview, and we want to make sure we save our levels. We'll Control S, and we'll also go ahead and go File, Save Project, and let's open up our assets preview. And everything will show in purple at the moment because they're not URP materials. They are just regular shader materials. So we're going to have to convert these into URP ready. So we can go ahead and take a look. Let's go to our materials folder. And you can see they're in purple because they are, if we go up to our inspector, standard shaders. So we'll select our shader here, drop down, and we're going to go to Universal Render Pipeline, URP, and we're going to select lit. So there's also simple lit and unlit. There are some differences, but we're going to use the lit shader. And for this now, we're going to have to go to our textures folder and drag this first dungeon texture, click and drag it over to the base map square right here where my mouse is. There we go. Then it will update. And we are good on that. We can save our scene. We're going to go to our materials again. Go to the second purple material. And this one has the main map albedo right here, but then we also have this emission for the one of the lights has this color. We're going to change our shader first to lit. There we go. And you'll notice the emission came right over. Now we'll go ahead and go to our textures. We're going to drag the second texture into the base map square. And there we have it. Now we can rotate a sphere to see what that preview looks like. Now all of this is updated. We can Control S to save that. And we're also going to go File, Save Project. So now these are able to be lit. We have a light in the scene. And we have our object previews for what we're going to be using. So now, let's go ahead and take a look. We can turn on our grid on and off here and our opacity as needed. And if you see here, this square is pretty much like 4 squares. So we're going to use some snapping to be able to set this up. Now this is just our, I'll just Control Z that. This is just our asset preview. So we're going to go up to our scenes folder now and go to our level 1. And we'll go ahead and let's start with going into our prefabs folder. Yeah, they're showing in purple at the moment, but we did update the textures here, and you can see that in the inspector. Let's go ahead and start with our ground floor. So we'll drag this into from our prefabs folder to the level 1 folder. And we can see it here. We could go ahead and turn off our ground plane for right now. And we have our floor. Now with this floor, I'm also, let's see, we did create a prefab for that. Let's make sure we do our overrides. It is good. We're going to go ahead and delete this health prefab for right now. So we have our floor. So we want to set up our grid and settings and our snapping for this. And you can see our transforms has already been reset. It's at 0. And we're going to take a look at our grid. So the first thing that we need to do is select the move tool. We're going to change from local to global, so that's our global, our world here. And then we get the grid snapping. So we can click that, and that turns on our grid snapping on and off. Now one thing that might make this a little bit easier is, besides having the snapping, we can go to our grid drop down, click the three dots, and go to the grid snap settings. I'll pop up this window here. So grid size is set to 1 grid. So what we could, if we do 2, we could turn on our snapping and see. Let's do, so we'll leave it at 1 is good to go. It's going to snap to the center. That's actually perfect for this. But we also have aligning. If we needed to, we could align it on the X, Y, and Z. You'll see this later on. So our grid snapping is good to go. You have increment snapping as well. So now for our floor, we can do Control D and just move it over and it'll snap. And then I will shift click all of these from the clicking the first one, shift clicking the last one, Control D. And then I'm going to click the first one, shift click the last one, Control D, again, and move them over. You can see we'll be able to really knock out this space pretty quickly if we needed to. Let's do from 10 to 15. We'll do Control D. Just move these. See how that goes for the moment. Okay, so we got our floors here. Let's go ahead and we're going to go up to our plus symbol and create an empty and click the three dots to reset the transform. We want to reset the transforms. And we're going to call this ground. I'm going to take all of my floors and put this into the ground grouping. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab a wall and just drag that into the hierarchy. And we can go ahead and just move this to, say, the back. And you'll see because it snaps on the grid, it's right there with Control D, Control D. We could go ahead and shift click these, Control D. There we go. On this last one, we need to rotate it, so we can click our rotate tool. And what we can do is actually hold Control so we can rotate it. Let's see, I'm going to start all over here. So Control and rotate it so we get that exactly 90 degrees. There we go. And then we can be able to snap it right too. And we've got our corner going. So 6 through 10, Control D, and bring those over. Now we're going to bring in our wall entrance into here, and then we'll bring it over. Maybe say right here. And I'll take two of these walls back here and Control D and move those up. They snap right into place. looks good. And actually, let's go ahead and do this for the back one. Then we'll grab our walls here. Let's minimize our ground again. Let's right click or the plus sign and create another empty. Reset the transforms. Name this walls. We'll put all of our walls inside there. So now we have our walls all together in a group. And we could include our pillars with that. Drag in our pillar. And I'm going to go ahead and place that in the group. And the nice thing about these pillars, besides having where sometimes they don't quite match up in the corners, or just to make it look a little bit more interesting, we can be able to put these here and they kind of break up the corners. And I can do Control D, and it's snapping right here, but if I turn off snapping, well, actually we can leave that on because I'm just going to move it over to the middle right about here. So it makes it look interesting. There we go. Now if we were to play this, our player is going to go right through these objects, because if we click on our prefab door, there's nothing going on to cause collision, right? So let's go ahead and first take a look at our pillar here. So we'll go into our pillar. We can just double click our prefab. We will add a box collider. And you can see that lines that right up with it. That works fine for now. And we'll make sure to save, unless if you have autosave on, but that's a resource hog, so we'll just click save. And we're going to go into our wall, so we'll double click this, add our box collider, and this one, I'm going to pull it in just a little bit closer to the wall. So that way, yeah, it's a little bit closer to the wall. That's fine. There we go. Click save. Then we'll go to our doorway. And so we can double click our doorway. And this one, for now, we could add a mesh collider. And if we did is the convex, it's not going to work right. So we're just going to leave that off. Mesh colliders can be expensive. So it's maybe something we want to add a box collider to. We could add several box colliders, one for each side and one for the top section. But for now, we'll just leave that there. And our floor, go ahead and add a mesh collider and do is convex on and save. Let's see. You can see our plane with the mesh collider. If we have is convex on, it's kind of a square. We'll just leave that off right now because we don't really need that. And we may do a few updated things later, but we'll save that. Let's double click our door. We'll come back to the door. Actually, no, let's go ahead and add a box collider to it for now. Box collider. There we can see the collider on it. Fits. That's good. good. We'll save that. Alright, we can click the arrow to go back to our scene view, and let's go ahead and play test. We can go through the door, and we can collide. And you can see it even collides there with the pillar. Has to go around it. Yes. There we go. Alright, so you could add a little bit more to this. We've got the lights. I would do the same thing with the lights. If you want to create an empty and reset the transforms, and then as you drag in your lights, you have on and off lights here, which is really nice, where you want to place those. And then you can add them into that group. And then same thing to rotate, control, do 90 degrees. Let's see, I did the opposite. So we'll do -90. There we go. And if we wanted to place these specifically, we could turn off the snapping and just move it up. And we have something there. So this light object here will select the directional light. We can just move this out of the way for the moment. We're going to make some lighting changes very soon. Now, check out the next video for a few more interesting updates.